Welcome to this tutorial on assisting UW-Madison students during early voting and on Election Day. This covers number 1, registration and proof of residence, and number 2, voter ID and proof of enrollment. Let's start with registration and proof of residence. In Wisconsin, a voter must be a U.S. citizen, not on probation or parole, 18 years old, and a resident for 28 days. If you move within Wisconsin less than 28 days before the election, you vote at your old polling place. In Wisconsin, you must be 18 or older by the day of the election that you are voting in. You can register before Election Day if you will be 18 or older by Election Day. For students, residency for tuition purposes has no connection to Wisconsin residency for voting purposes. Be very careful filling out a registration form. It's a legal document. The writing must be legible. It must be complete. A good quality control method is to ask a colleague to double-check the form for completeness and sign it. When registering during early voting or on Election Day, proof of residence must be shown. Any University of Wisconsin webpage is a government document and may be used for POR, proof of residence. POR can be presented electronically or on paper. Most students will use an electronic government document. An easy way to get POR is to use go.wisc.edu/address. Usually, the students will use their phone. Incidentally, this movie will present several useful links, and at the end, there will be an address where you can get a list of all the links. The student logs in using their NetID and password, as they usually do. Then, this URL takes them right to the address page, which is a government document. For an alternate path, the student might have the Wisconsin app installed on their phone. They can get to the same page by the path My UW, Student Center, Profile, Addresses. This address page is a government document. Depending upon which path is used, it will either show the wisc.edu web address, shown on the left, or the UW logo, shown on the right. These are indications that it is a government document. It also shows the student's full name. We are going to show you the details of how the student can update this page to their current Madison address. We have also developed a printed color visual guide that will be helpful at early voting locations and Election Day polling places. If the address needs updating, the student scrolls down to Mailing Address. The UW prefers that the mailing address be updated for this purpose. Click in the large box with the mailing address. A window pops up, and the student edits the address. An apartment number can go in the Address To line. When done, the student clicks Save. This returns to the address screen, which can now be used as proof of residence. For early voting registrations, check that the address is in the City of Madison by using myvote.wi.gov. For Election Day registrations, check that the address is in your ward. After you witness the POR, document it on the bottom of the voter's registration form as a government document. Documentation during early voting is a little different from Election Day. This shows the bottom of the voter registration form. It's customized for the City of Madison. For early voting, here is how you document the POR. Starting on the left side, write G, which is Madison's code for government document. The issuing entity is UW-Madison, or just UW. There is no identifying number or account number on this document. So, in the POR number box, write N/A for Not Applicable. Enter today's date and sign it in the official signatures box. For early voting, write the location, such as Union South, in the blocks below your signature. This is a total of 6 entries. For Election Day registrations, there are differences. In addition to the other items, At the bottom left, write the ward number in the proper box. The poll worker and the second checker sign the form. The voter number is issued by the election official who issues the ballot and enters that number. This is a total of 8 entries. To review details of this documentation, refer to the printed color visual guides. Occasionally, a student will not have a working phone or laptop due to it being broken, lost, or a dead battery. It may be difficult for the student to log in on someone else's device. Here are 2 alternatives. At go.wisc.edu/templogin, the student can find directions for logging in on someone else's device. An alternative is to use the housing list for POR. Polling places that serve UW housing will have a certified list of students living in UW housing. This can be used as proof of residence as long as it is accompanied by a student ID, either the WISC card or the student voter ID. This is coded as H on the registration form. This housing list will also be available at early voting sites. Of course, it does not include students who do not live in UW housing. So let's review. Go.wisc.edu/address is a direct path to the student's address page. An alternate is to use the Wisconsin app. The address page is a government document. The student can update their address if needed. Document the POR on the bottom of the form. Now that the student is registered, let's go over voter ID and proof of enrollment. The standard student WISC card is not acceptable. It does not meet the specifications in the law. An out-of-state driver license is also not acceptable. Of course, any student can use any of the forms of ID that are acceptable, such as a Wisconsin driver license. For voter ID, the address on any of these does not matter. Any UW-Madison student can get a free student voter ID at Union South. Just bring your WISC card to the WISC card office anytime they are open. On Election Day, they are open from 7 a.m. until 8 p.m. And on Election Day, there may be additional locations on campus to get a student voter ID card. The special student voter ID card meets all the specifications in the law. It has an issue date, an expiration date 2 years after the issue date, a signature, and a picture. Instead of going to the WISC card office, students can quickly download an electronic ID at voterid.wisc.edu. Here are the important steps. First, students go to voterid.wisc.edu and log in as usual. After login, it goes to an introductory screen, which gives you a choice of getting a PDF of the ID by email or by download. If you select Download, your PDF reader opens and displays your ID with detailed instructions. Important! For voting in person at either early voting or on Election Day, the student must print the ID onto paper. After printing, the student signs it in the blank signature box. Because of a court ruling in June 2020, an expired student ID card is acceptable if it meets the specifications and if the student presents proof of enrollment. Proof of enrollment, POE, can be presented electronically or on paper. It is only required if the student ID is expired. A simple way to get proof of enrollment is to use go.wisc.edu/verify. The student logs in, and then this document is shown. It has the student's full name and certifies enrollment status. When used as POE, the address shown does not matter. There are alternative proofs of enrollment: a class schedule, a tuition fee receipt, or the current semester bus pass that is distributed by the Associated Students of Madison. Again, for proof of enrollment, the address does not matter. Remember that proof of enrollment is only needed if a student is using an expired student voter ID to proof identity. As an alternative to proof of enrollment, a UW-Madison student could simply go to voterid.wisc.edu and download a fresh ID and print it. The issue date will be the day of the download. Let's wrap up. Here are some key web addresses. go.wisc.edu/address for POR. go.wisc.edu/verify for POE. myvote.wi.gov, where you can use the address button to check that an address is in Madison. The website of the League of Women Voters of Dane County has resources with this information about UW students. A shortcut is go.wisc.edu/LWV. It has a link to this movie, a PDF of these slides, copies of the color visuals guides on POR for UW students, and a PDF listing the key links. This movie is at go.wisc.edu/pollworker-training. There is a short quiz where you can leave comments. Consider reviewing this movie and the printed color visual guide at the beginning of your shift. Thanks for serving as a Madison election official at early voting or on Election Day.